very much. I'm going to turn it over to the students now. And thank you again for making time to meet with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes, there are 4 students here. My name is Chris.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Avi.
And I'm Andrew.
And we'd like to...
You guys sound like a band.
How'd you know? Yes, and we'd like to start off this interview with, has your organization been helping individuals long enough to see success after high school? And if so, what are some examples of this?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. This is our 5th anniversary year. We have had a couple of young students that have graduated. One is actually a consultant with us now. Young kid from a single-parent home. Father died when he was young. Great personality, character, but when you're in a situation where his mother has schizophrenia, and so he's not getting the support that he needs to do the things that he's trying to do. So we have actually brought him on to do some work with us to both help the program and to help him, and he will be starting at Prince George's Community College in the summer. When he came with us, had average grades. He was one of the first students that when we started tutoring, was the first one to leave me a voicemail on my cell phone, and his message, almost verbatim, was, Mr. Malone, this is Stephen White. I'm calling to let you know that I made honor roll like I said I would. So that, that's a proud moment. So he's doing well. We have another student down in Morehouse College. He actually was a product of a 2-parent home, but the parents split up, I think, his senior year. Again, here, great success where, this guy, continued to work hard in his schoolwork. A lot of what we do is try to help them improve grades and then kind of leverage that excitement in other areas of their lives. So he's in Morehouse College as well. So we just have a couple of folks that have kind of been with us a couple of years in our program and that have graduated to move on to higher education.
Okay.
That's really great. Just as a sort of follow-up question to that, do you have any seniors or maybe some juniors in high school in your program now that you expect to graduate and go to college? Or what does your sort of graduating class look like this year?
We typically have 2 or 3 students per year that are graduating. All of them we expect to go to college. There was another student that graduated out of our program who started sort of focusing on technical school and then ended up looking at some arts programs. We are actually looking at expanding services that we offer to students to provide them with support in completing college applications and essays and scholarship applications and that sort of thing. Typically every year there are a couple of students who are graduating, and most of the students, we try to get them to a point in their study habits where they can be situated to go to college and pursue higher education.
Okay, great. Now we just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about your budget. I'm not sure if you have it in front of you, but you state in the application that you wanted the $10,000 to go towards helping your... towards helping your programs that are already instated, and also towards hiring the first paid position for program management. We were wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about where exactly the $10,000 would go and how much of it would be going to which areas?
To which area?
Yeah.
Let me give you a short backdrop and then answer that question as specific as I can.
Okay.
This is a wonderful group that started with volunteers. Started with 4 guys who pretty much lived in the same neighborhood who wanted to help boys that lived in their immediate neighborhood. We then sort of expanded to partner with Largo High School. So the school, actually the first year we started, invited us in to work with young boys not only at Largo but throughout Prince George's County. Since that time, we have grown to be an organization with, 25, 30 volunteers a year that do tutoring and mentoring and plan events. Just about 30 plus students per year that we work with. There's some students that kind of come in and don't really last to the end of the year, but typically, we're providing a significant amount of services to at least 30 boys a year. That has all been done with volunteers. This year is actually the first fiscal year that we have compensated people of any significant level to help run the program. We have a volunteer Maryland coordinator through the state of Maryland. That is a $4,500 cash match that we provide, and then Volunteer Maryland covers the rest of their compensation. And then this year, actually, Karen Sheets, who used to be with Mentors Inc., is sort of our first, if you will, program management staff person as a consultant. We got a grant from the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. And so part of the funds that we receive from them go towards bringing Karen on to help us do what we do better. To help us evaluate the program and to add to the program so we're providing the best service we can to the boys. Going forward into the next budget year, here's where we are, frankly. We need to keep someone like Karen and or add someone in addition to Karen to do what we do well. Funding from that, primarily we every year get funding from the Prince George's County. We always get a couple of corporate donors, like I work at M&T Bank, so they normally are participants in the program in terms of sponsorship. But frankly, we probably need at least one or two other funding sources, whether they're consistent year to year or we're rotating between funders year to year to continue to help us out. So I would say if the University of Maryland, your class, was to select us as a recipient, maybe half would go towards staffing and the other half would go towards the program that we run today and expanded programming. Because again, we're looking at a couple of contractors, and I like using contractors because I don't want to have to deal with staff at this point. I don't think we're quite there. But there are people that do things very well that our ability to tap into them as a consultant will pay off hugely. So the second person that we would potentially bring on would be someone to then focus on assisting boys with applying to college, writing essays, and doing those sorts of things. Because what happens is I get a bunch of emails about opportunities. The kids don't reply to those emails. They don't follow up on summer job programs. They don't follow up on scholarships or summer retreats. Parents might sometimes, but the boys they don't follow up. So the only way to help them get through the process is to put someone next to them to help them work through it. And it's essentially the same thing we found with studying and helping them improve their grades in high school now. Before we started tutoring, we would ask students how they were doing in school, and the answers and responses we got back were horrible. So now that we tutor and can sit next to them and work through the issues and help them with homework, we see a tremendous difference. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does.
I gave you a long-winded answer there, but I would say, maybe half and half.
Okay.
Maybe you could go 60-40 one way or the other. But you would certainly not be the only source funding a staff person, because we know there's some funders that don't really like to fund staffing. And I guess I've given them the same answer I've given you. It is the biggest need that we have.
Okay.
Right. Just as a follow-up of sorts to that, we looked at your budget and saw that roughly 50% of it is reported to going towards consultant and professional fees.
Yes.
Could you just give us a description of exactly what that entails?
I'm gonna let Karen jump in on a part of that. But your volunteer Maryland coordinator would be in there. That's just again about $4,500. The rest would be one or multiple consultants that help us oversee the program and run it. So that includes people who run our Saturday mentoring and tutoring program, people who follow up and are calling and responding to parents during the week. It includes tracking the data that we need to report to Foundation in terms of the number of students that we impact and the level of outcomes that we're achieving with those students. It also includes, in some way, a face or another face of the organization to the community in terms of, communicating and being involved with other collaborations that we might be a part of. For instance, we do work with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Someone's got to manage that relationship. So there has to be a staff person, one or two, that makes our organization run. What makes me excited is, I'm talking to you like we're friends here. I work for M&T Bank, and what I do is I provide financial services to nonprofits. All my clients are nonprofits, so I know organizations that do really great work. And I know funders who fund these organizations. But if you ask these funders, how come they keep giving more and more money to these organizations? And in the aggregate, you ask yourself, is, for instance, the students in the district doing better now or worse now than they were 5 years ago? You could argue either way, but you probably wouldn't say they're doing drastically better. The key to being successful is having a great core volunteer. We have that. We have a very strong engine that really runs well on the weekend. The purpose for getting a consultant or a staff person is to now drive that car more days of the week than Saturday. That's the analogy I use. And so we've kind of worked backwards where some folks work with staff and then try to find volunteers. We've already got a great core of volunteers. And that core of volunteers is in some ways priceless. Although we put $30,000 and we capture that in our budget, there's much more by way of volunteerism that happens beyond your normal Saturday tutoring event. Karen, you want to just talk a little bit more about specific roles and responsibilities of consultants?
Sure. So probably the majority of that $50,000 is for me, and I do not only just the day-to-day program management, but fundraising too. And then, as Rob mentioned before, our one of our graduates, Stephen White, who helps me out with various program management things during the week. Part of that number goes to him. And then we contract with the two leads that lead our tutoring program. They are with an organization. What's the name of the organization, Rob? I'm blanking now.
Well, Future Leaders and It's Only Numbers are the two.
Yeah. So part of that goes to them. So that's the majority of it. Then there are some, smaller, specific project-oriented consultants that come on, like Rob was saying about the college prep and stuff like that. So that would be, I think that covers, and the volunteer coordinator position. So that would total up the $50,000 there.
Okay, Mr. Malone, you talked briefly about expanding your services such as, college applications and summer jobs. In the application, you listed several current programs, such as the anger management workshop or the leadership retreat. What are the major strengths and weaknesses of these current programs you're running?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm smiling as you're asking that question. When we started this program, I think it's important for you to note that the guys that started this program are people that work in different professional areas: engineering, banking, legal, speech writers. It's a diverse group of men that got involved to start this group. None of these men have training in, per se, youth development or psychology. So when we started this program, in some cases it was an experiment. And then through that experiment, you learn what your customers need. Just like if you started a business, you have an idea for what you want to execute. But you know what? Once you enter interact with customers, they can take you down a completely different path. So when we started the program, there was no curricula that we had. We went to junior tree achievement. We had training on their curriculum, but came back and said that doesn't work. We worked with the folks up in Baltimore for Urban Leadership Institute. We looked at material they had. We said that didn't work because it just didn't fit. What our guys deal with is anger, getting along with parents, and grades. Always the top three issues. So if you look at how we've structured services, we have tutoring now on every Saturday. The anger resolution workshop, I think we started that we just finished our third session, so I guess we started that our second or third year. It is the most impactful thing that I think we do outside of tutoring, in that what we do is we bring together students and their parents to deal with real-time issues. Just the synopsis of the day, it starts with some training on what anger is, what the purpose of anger is, and how you mechanically work through a situation where you're angry with someone, or how do you forgive someone. It includes a panel of people who have very inspiring stories. People who've gone through abuse and molestation, abandonment, you name it. We typically have 4 or 5 people on this panel, and it's typically 3 of them are the same every time. And then we close out with the students and parents working through specific issues that they have, and we spread folks throughout the room to work through. And this is when folks storm out and they're in tears. But at the end of the day, you end up in a place where you've learned some words to use in dialogue between parent and student, and you've learned how to approach a situation that you typically avoid. So it's a huge benefit, and we do a pre and post survey from that event. I don't know if we included that data in our presentation to you, but I'll just say at the top of my head, I mean, we certainly saw improvement in terms of people's understanding of what anger is all about and appropriate ways for dealing with it. The Success Panel and Leadership Institute Success Panel is actually where we take the boys to a different location, and they sit down with men who are very successful. It has included panelists like the president of Washington Gas, president of Pepco, managing partner of major law firms, and they just talk them through their story and allow them to ask very intimate questions about their lives, what their childhood was like. And it's an inspiring session where it shows young folks you can start from almost nowhere and be extremely successful. So we craft these events and have accumulated a set of events over time that focus on what our boards need now. The last 2 things I'll add to that are the retreat. This will be the first year we've done a retreat. It's being coordinated by volunteers and 1 consultant in an effort to both teach them skills, build relationships, and to sort of challenge them from a leadership perspective. And the last thing I was going to say, curriculum. We have 2 things that we're using this year. There's a book called The Pact. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's about 3 boys who grew up in New Jersey. That is a piece that we've added to the program this year that, again, demonstrates how people come from almost nothing and succeed. And then we also have a curriculum called Rising Stars. It's developed by a firm called Resource Associates out of Pennsylvania. It was the material that really worked for where our boys are. It helps them identify where they are today. It focuses on self-esteem. It dissects and gives you clear definition and allows you to assess yourself in terms of where you are from a leadership perspective. So I give you another long-winded answer to say that in some ways we've been experiential and we've learned through this process, both internally by working with the students we support, but we also
question. Is just, you described the strengths of your programs really well. We were wondering what some of the major weaknesses of the programs might be, and how our grant might be able to help overcome some of those weaknesses.
These are very good questions. I used to interview people and I used to ask these same questions. Shoot, I was trying to open a document. We have, I'll call it a retreat in the summer where we pull together board of directors, volunteers, and students. And we sort of assess ourselves on different areas that we're trying to do well. And I can tell you from the survey results specifically where we have gaps. Parents want us to do more one-on-one and interactive activity. Interactive stuff we've already done. We know we're doing better on that. But the one-on-one piece is a tough piece to crack. Almost every nonprofit that does youth development work in our area, Greater Washington, will tell you they have a hard time recruiting African American men to volunteer. We're probably better than most because we started with a group of African American volunteers. But we still have a challenge. It's hard to get 30 to 40 men to commit to coming every week or to find time to carve out of their schedule time to work with boys one-on-one. So it's something that we continue to work. We push. Our volunteer Maryland coordinator was focused on that this year. We've probably added 4. So far, we're way short of our goal. I have already requested to get a Maryland coordinator for next year, so we can continue building upon what this year's coordinator brought. One-to-one would be the biggest parent issue. Most of the other levels for the parent survey that we do the surveys in January, we do pretty well. For volunteers, I can tell you our huge gap in terms of scores was around training and preparation. So these guys, once they come in, they're like, Rob, I came, you did an orientation, that was fine, I kind of jumped in, got started, but I'm still not sure exactly, am I doing what I need to do? Is there something else I should be doing? So we certainly got that feedback from the survey we did of the mentors and other tutors this year. So we've already done our first, if you will, additional training session. We had someone come from Concerned Black Men to do a session, I guess it was 3 weeks ago. We are now planning a second one with a guy, some of you guys may know, talked to different organizations, but he used to work at Mentors Inc., a gentleman named Brian Sells, who's been involved with mentoring work for at least 10, 15 years. We are planning to have him come, I think, the first or third Saturday in May, to do some specific things, to talk about how do you, engaging young folks, being in their world, those sorts of things. So, from the volunteer side, training, preparation, expectation setting is an area that we're beefing up. From the parent-student side, we're beating the street to get more mentors to work one-on-one. And then our partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters is set up in such a way that when we find men that are willing to volunteer one-on-one with a student, they actually do additional background checks, they do the home visits and that sort of thing, and continue to support them over time so they in fact become a part of both programs.
Okay. Sounds awesome. We're at this point in the time in the interview, we're done asking you questions, but do you have any questions for us?
Well, the first thing that pops to my mind is there, in terms of what you're looking for, is there anything that you all are hoping to accomplish through your grant?
I think mostly all we're really looking for to accomplish in the grant, the only thing that's really set in stone is that we really want to make a big impact on the youth. And I think in terms of mentoring to manhood, the biggest thing that we were concerned about was that the money would be going to a staff member rather than directly to the kids. But I think, I can't speak for the whole class, but I'm personally satisfied with half and half. Because I think you've really described the need for a full-time staff member, and I don't know, you've convinced convince me. But
people don't realize, let me just chime in a little bit, people don't realize a lot that, I mean, when it comes to mentoring programs, staffing is going to be the biggest cost, no matter what. I mean, it takes a lot of staff time to make mentoring programs work right. So, I mean, it's kind of an unavoidable thing, but it works. And I mean, when you talk about the impact on the kids, I think one thing that, and any perceived weaknesses that we may have, I think one of the things that I see as far as what I'm focusing on now and how we can best leverage the money that we're getting from the state is specifically one thing is on a mentoring database, so that we're really able to much better track what we are doing and the impact that we're having. We're not able to do that right now because we just kind of we use Google Mail. We don't have a real database. So small things like that are really going to increase our capacity and be able to really measure what kind of impact we have, I think is going to have to help a great deal.
Yeah, right.
The only thing I'll add to what Karen just said is, in some sense, when you think about staffing, I would like you to think about, at least for us, staffing in terms of direct service as well. Because as a completely volunteer organization, if I'm here, which I am, sitting in my office at the bank, parent calls me with an issue with a child. I may have the time to do it right now, or I may not. And so what staffing gives you is, again, I gotta use this great car scenario. The staff person gets to drive a car that we already built, so that when a student has an issue outside of Saturday, that staff person can either consult with them directly, talk to the parent, arrange some follow-up. We have a partnership with Greenbelt Cares as well, which is like a counseling service, and primarily for folks in Greenbelt, but they also have agreed to work with us with all students on our program. So, who's going to reach out and call Greenbelt Cares and say, would you mind giving Miss Thompson a call? She's having this issue. Here's what I said to her, but she really needs another opinion. So those sorts of things are happening during the week when, frankly, I'm at work and I'm a sales guy. If I don't sell, I don't eat. And so that's the value that staffing brings. It drives more impact to the students because now you have someone who we can say, you know what, we need to do X, and that person's doing it during the week.
Are there any other questions you have for us?
Any other questions we have for you?
Yes.
Have you done this before?
No. We are the guinea pigs for this organization, well, for the College Park Scholars Philanthropy class.
Okay. And after you grant the scholarship award, some of this maybe I should know, but let me just ask the question. Once you make your decision, you pick an organization you want to support, how would you like to remain involved, or what would you like to see post-award?
I think a lot of kids in our class are definitely really excited about getting involved with whatever organization we decide to fund, and I think any way that we can be involved, we would be happy to be involved.
Anybody want a tutor? We got any tutors in there?
I'd like to.
Because certainly, there's so many ways for an organization like us for folks to be involved. Certainly we don't have women that are mentoring boys. That's kind of our preference not to go that direction, but we do have adult females and student females who tutor. We have high school students and some students from Prince George Community College primarily right now who volunteer, in addition to the adults that we have. And then there's things like there's event planning. There's all sorts of things that come up. There's essay support. There's a college tour at University of Maryland to hear more about college life. So there's plenty of options available under that approach. And then in terms of just in terms of results that we produce, I don't know. And once this class is over, are you all still together somehow as a cohort next year?
We're not specifically together as our class, but there will be another class next semester who will be doing the same program.
Okay. So they may want to at least, even if they don't select us to fund again, they may at least want to see some of the results.
Right.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe we plan to come to class and talk about what we do and how it got started and
Yeah.
how the grant supported our organization.
All right.
I did get an email before this call about a site visit.
Right.
Did you want to chat briefly about that now? Because there is one important